First off, I owe all of you an apology for not releasing a video since December 2024. Life threw some curveballs. But I'm back. And from now on, videos will be dropping regularly, as soon as the news is out. A huge thank you to all my loyal subscribers who stayed with the channel through the silence. I truly, really appreciate you. Your support means everything to me. If you're new here, welcome. Hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. If you appreciate the content, don't forget to like the video and share it with your friends. Let's keep this conversation going. In today's video, I will be critically analyzing whether the Jamaican government has failed to deliver prosperity for the people, despite inheriting the legislative framework established by the People's National Party, PNP, back in 2012 to stabilize the economy. Also, Elhydro Limited is threatening to take legal action against the Gleaner company unless they retract what the company claims are false, misleading, and defamatory statements. I will dive into the details of that and what it means for the media landscape. Lastly, the country's new record low unemployment rate of 3.3%. Is this truly evidence of the Holness administration's effective governance and sound economic leadership? I will break it down and give you my thoughts. And let's get into it. The appointment of Kathryn Silvera as the first ever female president of the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association, JMEA, is undeniably a significant milestone in the history of the organization. Her selection, announced after the JMEA's annual general meeting at Summit Kingston, not only challenges long-standing gender norms but also sets the stage for broader discussions on the role of women in leadership within Jamaica's business and manufacturing sectors. Kathryn Silvera's appointment is undeniably historic, not only for her personally but also for the Jamaican business community. The symbolism of a woman in this role will undoubtedly spark conversations about gender equality, but it will be the substance of her leadership that determines her legacy. Will she successfully use her platform to modernize the Jamaican manufacturing sector, ensuring that it is more competitive, inclusive, and sustainable? How will her leadership redefine industry practices and address the challenges of an increasingly globalized economy? Time will reveal the true impact of her presidency. But for now, Kathryn Silvera's appointment represents a critical moment in the ongoing evolution of Jamaica's manufacturing and export sectors. Whether or not she can transform this historic moment into lasting, meaningful change will depend on her ability to lead with a vision that transcends gender and focuses on addressing the pressing issues that shape the future of Jamaican business. The recent exchange between Mark Golding and Andrew Holness on the issue of prosperity in Jamaica offers a glimpse into the competing narratives between the People's National Party, PNP, and the Jamaica Labour Party, JLP, as they each lay claim to the country's economic progress and future trajectory. Both leaders have different perspectives on how prosperity should be defined and who should receive credit for it. This critical analysis will examine the key points raised by both leaders, assess their arguments, and explore the broader implications for Jamaica's economic development. Mark Golding argues that the Holness-led government has failed to deliver on prosperity for Jamaicans, despite inheriting a solid legislative framework from the 2012 PNP administration. Golding's argument hinges on the idea that the PNP's fiscal responsibility framework, which included measures to control government spending, reduce debt, and stabilize the economy, was a major success. He asserts that while the Holness administration benefited from the PNP's groundwork, it has not delivered the kind of economic prosperity that was promised during the JLP's 2016 campaign. This critique from Golding touches on a core issue in Jamaican politics: the ongoing battle over economic legacies. The PNP prides itself on having laid the foundation for fiscal stability and debt control through the fiscal responsibility framework, which was pivotal in preventing Jamaica from falling further into fiscal mismanagement. Golding's criticism implies that despite this foundation, the Holness government has not effectively utilized these achievements to create substantial economic growth or improve the lives of the average Jamaican. However, Golding's argument lacks specificity regarding the ways in which the Holness administration has supposedly failed. While his criticism of the government's prosperity record is broad, he could strengthen his position by providing more concrete examples of missed opportunities or policies that directly hurt the people, especially in areas like job creation, wages, or quality of life. In contrast, Andrew Holness responds to Golding's critique by framing prosperity as a journey rather than an immediate or static achievement. Holness argues that prosperity is not a singular event or a moment but rather a continuous process of transformation, which will inevitably involve ups and downs along the way. His reference to moments of pleasure, distress, and hurt as part of the journey is intended to position his administration as one that is guiding the country through both challenges and successes. This perspective aligns with a long-term vision of economic growth that does not seek instant gratification but rather aims to build a resilient economy through steady progress. Holness' defense of his administration suggests that while the road to prosperity may not always be smooth, the Holness-led government has put Jamaica on a path of upward mobility. His argument is grounded in optimism and long-term thinking, which resonates with a substantial portion of the population that may be feeling the effects of incremental improvements but may not yet see the full fruits of this progress. However, Holness' argument about prosperity as a journey is also somewhat abstract. While it is a philosophical and strategic approach, it lacks the specific deliverables that many Jamaicans are seeking. For example, while the unemployment rate has dropped to a historic low of 3.3%, many individuals are still grappling with issues like underemployment, low wages, and cost of living. Holness' framing of prosperity as a journey may seem idealistic and distant for citizens who are looking for more immediate solutions to pressing challenges. Golding's argument about the PNP's fiscal responsibility framework in 2012 deserves further examination. The PNP government's efforts to stabilize Jamaica's economy during this period were significant. They introduced mechanisms to reduce public debt, curb inflation, and achieve a degree of fiscal discipline, all of which created the groundwork for future growth. However, the long-term impacts of these measures have been debated. While debt reduction and fiscal discipline were necessary, they may have limited the government's ability to stimulate economic growth in a meaningful way during the PNP's tenure. In contrast, Holness' government has, in many ways, continued the fiscal policies of the PNP, but with a focus on creating jobs and attracting foreign investment. His argument that absolute poverty has been cut in half, from 16% to 8%, is certainly a positive result of economic policies that have emphasized macroeconomic stability and job creation. While this drop in poverty is a significant achievement, it is worth noting that the poverty rate still reflects a deep structural issue in the economy, and many Jamaicans continue to face barriers to improving their socio-economic status. The exchange between Golding and Holness illustrates two competing visions of Jamaican prosperity. Golding focuses on the fiscal framework that the PNP implemented and the economic stability that was achieved during its time in power. But he argues that this stability has not translated into real, tangible benefits for the Jamaican people. Holness, on the other hand, positions prosperity as a long-term process that is still unfolding, with evidence of progress, but also with significant challenges that must be navigated over time. The truth likely lies somewhere between these two narratives. While it's clear that the PNP laid the foundation for fiscal stability, Holness' government has built on these efforts to achieve some key successes, particularly in poverty reduction and job creation. However, both leaders must contend with the reality that prosperity in terms of improving the quality of life for all Jamaicans requires much more than just fiscal discipline and employment figures. It involves addressing deep-rooted issues such as income inequality, access to quality education, healthcare, and housing, as well as ensuring that economic growth benefits all citizens, not just a select few. Jamaica Labour Party, JLP, Senator Marlon Morgan's praise of the country's record low unemployment rate of 3.3% as evidence of the Holness administration's effective governance and sound economic leadership highlights an important political debate: the real state of Jamaica's economy and employment situation. While the official statistics from the Statistical Institute of Jamaica, STATIN, reflect a significant reduction in unemployment, the public's response, particularly concerns raised by individuals in the workforce, reveals a much more complex picture. This analysis will look at several key points: the credibility of the unemployment statistics, the real-world implications of such low unemployment rates, and the criticisms and concerns expressed by various groups, particularly regarding the cost of living and the nature of self-employment. Senator Morgan's praise of the 3.3% unemployment rate draws attention to the impressive statistical achievement that reflects the success of the Holness administration in reducing unemployment. This figure suggests that the majority of the Jamaican workforce is employed, a strong economic indicator that could be considered positive at a surface level. However, it's important to critically examine what this statistic represents. Unemployment rates can sometimes be misleading because they do not capture the entirety of the workforce. For example, underemployment, People who are employed part-time or in jobs that don't fully utilize their skills may still be counted as employed, even though they are not fully contributing to the economy in the way full-time skilled workers would. Self-employment and informal economy. The rise in self-employment and the informal sector can significantly impact unemployment figures. If people are creating their own businesses or working in gigs, they might not be captured in traditional employment data, even though they are not necessarily financially secure or contributing fully to the economy. Exclusion of discouraged workers. People who have given up looking for work because they believe they won't find it, or those who are not actively seeking employment, are not included in unemployment statistics. This can give an inflated sense of job availability. Senator Morgan's point about business and consumer confidence rising alongside the drop in unemployment is compelling on the surface. However, it would be important to see how these figures are measured and whether they align with the lived realities of ordinary Jamaicans. A significant criticism raised in the conversation is the disconnect between employment figures and the real cost of living in Jamaica. The complaint centers around the fact that while unemployment might be at record lows, the cost of living has skyrocketed, making it difficult for the average Jamaican to make ends meet. Daily living costs. The calculation provided in the critique outlines how basic expenses like lunch, dinner, bus fare, and breakfast amount to Jamaican $2,003 per day, or Jamaican $11,500 per week. This means that Jamaican $16,000 per week, which is considered a modest income, leaves only a small margin for other expenses, which could be considered insufficient to cover the basic needs of many workers. Critically, this implies that higher employment rates do not necessarily equate to better living conditions if wages are not commensurate with the rising cost of goods and services. The argument here is that the real value of employment has decreased, despite the official figures indicating low unemployment, inflation and wage disparity. Many critics argue that inflation in Jamaica has outpaced wage growth, meaning that even if people are employed, they may not have the purchasing power to afford a decent standard of living. Employment without livable wages often leads to the perception of underemployment, where people are working but still struggling to meet basic needs. Another interesting point raised in the critique is the increase in self-employment and entrepreneurship as a possible explanation for the drop in unemployment. If people are becoming entrepreneurs or relying on informal sector jobs, this could be skewing the statistics on formal employment. Self-employment vs. job security. While self-employment may reduce the official unemployment rate, it does not necessarily translate to stable, reliable employment. Small businesses, freelancers, and gig workers face many challenges, including lack of benefits, irregular income, and lack of access to capital. The rise in self-employment may indicate a need for more formal sector jobs but can also reflect a lack of opportunities in the formal economy. Entrepreneurship is a necessity. For many, starting a business is not a choice, but rather a necessity because of limited job options. This points to a structural issue in the labor market. The supply of formal jobs may be insufficient to meet demand, pushing people to create their own sources of income. Data integrity and self-employment. Another criticism is the argument that the stat and data might overstate employment figures by counting people in the informal or self-employed sector, even though they may not be generating enough income to be considered truly employed. There is a valid concern here about how self-employment is measured and whether these individuals should be counted as employed or simply surviving. 4. Public perception and trust in government statistics. The criticism of the data and the role of Statin in compiling the figures raises concerns about the accuracy and transparency of the unemployment report. The suggestion that people who receive financial assistance from family abroad are counted as employed is contentious. This raises questions about how inclusive and accurate the data collection is, and whether the statistics presented truly reflect the economic reality of all Jamaicans. Census issues. The reference to STATIN's failure to complete the 2022 population census brings further skepticism into play. If the official statistics cannot be relied upon to provide accurate data on the population, how can the public trust the employment numbers? This issue undermines the credibility of the figures and calls into question the overall effectiveness of data collection systems in Jamaica. The critique also brings up the issue of political narratives surrounding unemployment, with an insinuation that the JLP is using the unemployment figure to bolster its claims of effective governance. However, the JLP's framing of the low unemployment rate could be seen as a political maneuver aimed at solidifying support particularly in light of calls for early elections and concerns over the economic welfare of Jamaicans. Voter discontent. The call for elections and criticisms of the JLP's leadership reflect a broader public discontent with the government's handling of economic issues, particularly with regard to employment, wages, and the cost of living. These political frustrations underscore a disconnect between government policies and the real needs of the populace. While Senator Marlon Morgan's praise of the 3% unemployment rate is rooted in legitimate statistical data, the broader context reveals a more complicated economic reality for many Jamaicans. The official unemployment rate is certainly a positive achievement in terms of government policy and economic management, but it does not tell the full story. The increase in self-employment, the rise in cost of living, and the lack of wage growth all point to underlying economic challenges that are not captured in the official unemployment rate. The real problem for many Jamaicans is not just about having jobs, but about the quality of those jobs, and whether they provide the financial stability necessary to meet basic living expenses. Additionally, concerns about data integrity, informal sector employment, and the broader economic environment indicate that the official unemployment statistics may not fully capture the realities of Jamaica's workforce. Ultimately, the debate between JLP and PNP is not just about numbers, but about the lived experiences of the Jamaican people. While the government can claim success in reducing unemployment, the public's frustration with economic hardship and rising costs suggests that the country's journey towards true prosperity is far from complete. Thanks for tuning into Politics Watch JA. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update on the latest in Jamaican politics. I really appreciate all of you who continue to support the channel. And if you're new here, welcome. Let's keep the conversation going in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions. As always, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep watching. See you in the next video.